In a quiet field in Ireland, archaeologists uncovered two medieval graves that didn't quite match the rest. Both bodies were buried normally, except for one detail that suggested that the people who put them there were afraid that they might come back. The site is called Kil Tisheen in County Roscommon. It dates back to the early medieval period, around the 8th century. At first glance, it looked like a typical burial ground. Simple graves with no elaborate markers, no obvious signs of violence. But when archaeologists began excavating, two burials immediately stood out. Each skeleton had a large stone deliberately forced into its mouth. Not placed gently, not resting there by accident. Forced deep enough so that the jaw could not close. This wasn't damage caused by time or soil pressure. The positioning was intentional. Whoever buried these men wanted their mouths sealed. In medieval Europe, this meant one thing: the fear of the revenant, the restless dead. Long before the word vampire existed in Ireland, there was a widespread belief that certain people could return after death. Not as ghosts, but as physical beings, walking corpses, hungry, dangerous, capable of spreading illness, misfortune, or death. These beings weren't supernatural predators with fangs and capes. They were neighbours, family members, people who had died wrong. In Irish folklore, they were sometimes called the Marv Vio, the living dead. And the mouth mattered more than anything else. The mouth was how a revenant fed, how it spoke curses, how it spread its plague. Blocking it was protection. What makes the Kil Tisheen burials especially disturbing is that nothing else about them suggested punishment. The bodies weren't decapitated, their limbs weren't bound, they weren't buried face down, which was another common preventative measure. They were laid out like everyone else, which suggests something important. These individuals were not criminals, they were not executed, they were just feared. Archaeologists believe men that may have been outsiders, possibly of Norse origin, but there's no definitive proof. What is clear is that the community believed these two people posed a threat after death, not during their life. And that fear was strong enough to override normal burial customs. This wasn't a panic, it was a procedure. Similar practices appear across medieval Europe. In Poland, stones were placed in throats. In Italy, bricks were forced into mouths. In England, iron stakes were driven through torsos. The methods differ, but the logic is the same. To stop the dead from rising, stop the dead from feeding, to stop the dead from speaking. Ireland rarely appears in vampire history discussions, which is why Kil Tisheen matters. It shows that the fear of the revenant wasn't imported later through Gothic literature. It was already here, embedded in belief systems centuries earlier, and it wasn't fringe folklore. This fear existed alongside Christianity. The people who buried these men likely attended church. They believed in heaven and hell, but they also believed that some souls didn't move on cleanly, that death wasn't always the end of a person's influence. Medieval life was brutal, disease was poorly understood, crops failed, children died suddenly. When something went wrong, people looked for causes. And sometimes the dead were to blame. A single death could spiral into a fear of if misfortune followed. Someone dies, illness spreads, livestock fails, and the solution isn't prayer alone, it's containment. That's what makes these burials chilling. They represent a moment when fear outweighed ritual, when the community quietly agreed we cannot take the risk. No records named these men, no stories survived explaining who they were, what they did. all that remains is the evidence of what people believed might happen if they weren't stopped. And that's the unsettling part, because nothing in these graves proves these men were dangerous, only that they were believed to be. Over time, the idea of vampires evolved. Literature added drama, teeth became fangs, the revenant became immortal. But Kil Tisheen reminds us of the original fear, not of monsters, but of the familiar becoming hostile after death. Someone you knew, someone you buried, someone who might not stay buried. Today the site is quiet again. Grass grows where fear once dictated ritual. The stones remain in place, still doing the job they were meant to do over 1,000 years ago. Not to punish the dead, but to protect the living. And that fear, the idea that death might not be final, is far older and far closer to home than most people realize.
If you enjoy stories about hidden history, forbidden ideas, conspiracy, mystery, consider subscribing, because new videos are coming every week, each one digging into a subject most people scroll past or are never meant to see at all. If this video made you think, leave a like or a comment. Even disagreeing helps push the conversation further. And if there is a figure, event, or idea you think deserves a deeper look, please let me know below. Stay tuned, because the next one is even stranger.